Hello everybody. Welcome back to the channel where we talk about stuff. Alright, just as a pre-warning, there might be a flurry of information coming your way to really let you understand exactly what's happening. Back in 2017, I know, a while ago, back in 2017, it was all but written in the stars that Bitcoin and crypto were going to take over. It was just there. The problem ended up being that by 2018, we were receiving a large amount of information that apparently a couple of countries were having problems with their currencies. This is even before the idea of inflation, hyperinflation, yada, yada, yada. The problem is that a number of people in these countries were actually doing transactions in Bitcoin and or in Tether within their countries instead of using their local currencies. This is actually still a thing right now, and this is why we've seen so much pushback about Bitcoin and about stable coins. The issue lies in the fact that we currently now have a system where we don't need the older systems anymore. I know it sounds insane. I know it maybe even sounds a little bit utopian. We don't need the legacy systems anymore because we know that blockchains work. We understand the transfer of value between ourselves, and we understand that the money doesn't have to touch a bank, doesn't have to go to Western Union, doesn't have to go to MoneyGram or Visa or MasterCard in order for it to successfully get to where it needs to go. Everyone still with me? Cool. When you find out about the capital controls of a lot of different countries, you've heard about it before, you've also experienced it yourself. If you try to move money, if you're flying with money, they always ask you, do you have more than $10,000 US equivalent of this currency on you before you enter into the country? It has to do with the idea of not only money laundering, but capital controls. Governments understand that money will flow out of their borders if they don't act correctly. So they implement these things to make sure that even when they don't act correctly, you still can't take your money out of the country. It's a very big thing that's been going on for a while. When we got wind of, in 2017 and 2018, that apparently a large amount of people within China were actually using and dealing and trading in cryptocurrencies and were foregoing their local currency, this is when the cut happened. For those of you who don't know, China has some of the strictest capital controls of any country, some of the strictest on the planet, where basically if you have your money in the country, that's where it's gonna stay. You might have heard me talk about before in other videos where in the early 2010s, people began to start taking their money out of China to move to other places. You might have seen the documentaries in Vancouver and in London and all these other places where real estate prices were skyrocketing. It's because people from China were moving their money out of China to buy real estate or to buy whatever they were buying. The country caught on and they were like, hey, stop it. So they ended up saying that you could only, I believe, move 1 million per year. That moved to 100K per year. That moved to 10K per year. Now you need like hyper special permission to be able to do so. One of the ways that people found a way around it is that they began to actually buy art. This was around 2012, 2013, somewhere around there, where people were going to these large auction houses. They were buying. There was a huge. You can find all the news about it. There were huge records of people, world records of people spending enormous amounts of money for art, and the majority of them were coming from China. People were like, well, they really love art. These people were figuring out how to get their money out of the country because the government said that they couldn't do so. So they were buying these pieces of art, and that also morphed into jewelry, also buying these rubies and stones and gems from these auction houses. 65, 75, $115 million, and they had the piece of art, which was legal, shipped to the UK or shipped to Canada. And then it was sold again in a private auction or private sale to someone else. That's the way to get your money out of the country. What happens when you have such an intense amount of capital control and someone says the word Bitcoin to you? What happens when you're able to deal in this market and put your money into this market and make an enormous amount of money and go, I need to get my money out of this country immediately or it's going to be stuck here? You simply move it along the blockchain. You send it to a friend. You send it somewhere else. It's your money. You have it on a USB and you walk away. That's where the entire thing comes in 2018, where everyone was talking about Bitcoin is banned in China. So one, for clarity again, Bitcoin is not banned in China. Trading Bitcoin is banned in China, as is using Bitcoin as a form of currency or legal tender. So it does not and cannot equate to their local currency, and you cannot buy things with Bitcoin. Why? Because they want you to continuously use the local currency. So since then, it's been a couple of years. We had news earlier this year that we were going to potentially see a number of Bitcoin ETFs launching not only within the United States, but also within Hong Kong. The significance is China's above Hong Kong, Hong Kong's to the south, and they have a more currently fair and free and open system than the place currently to the north of them. So when the US ETFs got approved and then the Hong Kong ETFs got approved, one of the major rumors was that people essentially from the north would be able to take a train down to the south and begin to deal in Bitcoin. We didn't have a lot of information about this. This was kind of sprinkled completely all over the place. And I really assumed that this news would have been bigger. It has to do with population. One of the reasons why we don't hear a lot about India within the cryptocurrency space is because their country and their central bank have kind of made it so. They've deterred and told people not to get into the market for as long as they can. Why? Because the general idea is that according to reports, there are estimates that around 10% of people within India would actually get into the cryptocurrency market. And if they do, that signifies around 100 million new people who would enter into the space. When you look at it from the side of China, who, for what it's worth based on the news, has more economic power per capita per person, when you talk about there's also the possibility of another potential 100 million people getting into the market, abandoning the local currency, it then makes a little bit more sense. The rumors have been kicked up again, but the issue, and I say issue lightly, is that this is being stated by people who previously before in the past have told us that things were going to happen and then they actually ended up happening. So there's someone called Richard Byworth, sounds very rich, managing partner at SYZ Capital, has said that he thinks that people within mainland China are soon going to have access to Bitcoin ETFs. The theory is, as the ETFs are a securitized version of Bitcoin, and it's not actual it's Bitcoin but not Bitcoin. You understand what I'm saying? It's, it's a stock version of Bitcoin, even though you would still get Bitcoin back if you cash them out. There's no risk of you holding a Bitcoin ETF piece of paper, I don't know why, and you going to a store and trying to use it as legal tender. That's the generalized idea. He said, I just got back from Hong Kong. There is talk that the ETF is going to be added to Stock Connect. The implication of this are absolutely enormous. It basically means that anyone, he said the term mainland money, is going to be able to buy it. I assume that Stock Connect is the thing that connects the stocks within that part of Asia. Immediately after, Samson Mao, who's one of the last 2 years, one of the larger players within the space, he's also a huge Bitcoin maximalist. He basically told people, he said, I don't think all of you understand exactly what's going on. I think you guys should be a lot more bullish, because if this does end up happening, the amount of capital that's going to flow into our market is going to be staggering. If you were not here back in 2017, in the beginning of 2018, three countries ruled the market. They were Japan, South Korea, and China. And can you guess which of these countries ended up freaking out completely when Bitcoin hit $20,000? It's all three of them. Yeah, Japan was talking about that they needed to get it under control because they were worried about capital controls and people stopping to use the yen. South Korea completely lost their minds, and there were rumors of them banning Bitcoin in 2018. And then good old China, who actually came forward and did this little mini ban that they currently have going on. If we now understand a couple of things, the ETFs that we already had within the United States were already staggering. You've seen the price movements from people simply buying up the ETF and BlackRock and Fidelity buying up these coins. A lot of the news ends up just being these two companies, completely forgetting about the other ones who also have inflows all the time as well. Wow. Oh gosh, that was terrible. Within the first 3 days, that was awful. Within the first 3 days of Hong Kong's ETFs, I think they had, was it $200 or $300 million worth of inflows into their ETFs as well. The annoying part is that news didn't make it into, it did that shut off thing again, is that it didn't make it into any Western news and people kind of pretended that it didn't happen. That's 3 days of trading. When our market picks back up, when Bitcoin goes past the previous all-time high and continues going higher, that $300 million is going to become $900 million very, 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 very quick. When Bitcoin hits 100K, that number is only going to increase, and that's just for the Hong Kong ETFs. We haven't even talked about getting back to the fervor and the energy that we had with just BlackRock doing $500 million of Bitcoin buys per day. If people in mainland China are at any point able to start buying these ETFs, it's game over for any normal person who's been trying to buy Bitcoin. We already heard, for those of you who missed it, Australia is planning to launch their own spot Bitcoin ETFs, and Singapore is currently working on paperwork or something like that for Singaporeans to gain access to these Hong Kong ETFs as well. I need everyone to really just pay attention. I know you are. I got it. I see the comments sometimes. I get it. I know. I understand that you're paying attention. But for the other 90% who didn't hear a word I said this entire time, we are entering the danger zone. The amount of Bitcoin that's already left out there is not a lot left out there. We are not in the year 2029. We are in 2024. The supply crunch is so insane that when we hear that a company has bought Bitcoin, Bitcoin's price goes up by 5%. One company. If by September we have dozens of spot ETFs around the world and they're all bringing in, even if it was just $50 million per day, that's more and more Bitcoin that's also disappearing. We are going to live in a world very soon where the only thing that you're going to have an option of buying is like small amounts of Satoshis. And I'll give it to you this way. Some of you may be buying Bitcoin quite often, what have you, so on and so forth. Do your bi-weekly or monthly Bitcoin buying budget and put Bitcoin at $400,000 and see exactly how little that you end up getting. Then bring up Bitcoin to $1.5 million and see exactly how little you end up getting. Yeah, even news quite recently of another company buying around 8,000 Bitcoin. I sit there and I'm like, those aren't going to last that long because all the Bitcoin keeps getting taken away. Yeah, so if this happens, we will be hearing about it. But even right now, without mainland China being able to, as far as we know, access these, they're still doing hundreds of millions of dollars in Bitcoin buys. Yeah, I do hope that you have all enjoyed. I do hope you all are having a great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be. I do hope it is absolutely fantastic. Thank you all once again for watching, listening, liking, commenting, and supporting. And I will most certainly be talking to you all soon. See you.